Hi, I'm Megan.
And I'm Neil.
And we've packed up our home in Glasgow and moved into our cute retro camper van Harmony to travel all over Scotland, exploring the best places to stand up paddle along the way. So come join our adventure as we visit the Highlands, Islands and everywhere in between on our
SUP
Safari Scotland!
Today we are just about to get on the small ferry over to the island of Hoy, which is the big island that the main Northlink ferry comes past on the way into Stromness. When we get there, the main thing we're going to do is I think it's a 3-hour return walk to see the Old Man of Hoy, which is a big sea stack just off the coast.
The walk took us around some stunning cliffside scenery and the weather was superb. Back on the mainland, we stopped for a quick look at Scapa Bay, a nice wee sandy bay protected from the winds and another good option for a paddle. But we were heading to Scale Bay for a park up. Scale Bay is home to the UNESCO World Heritage listed Skara Brae, a Neolithic settlement older than the Egyptian pyramids. We didn't visit this time, it was closed, but we recommend checking it out if you're in Orkney. I've been a couple of times and it's absolutely captivating. Also, Scale Bay is worth checking out for a paddle when the tide is in. Waking up to a foggy morning, we decide it's time to check out another island. We're going on another ferry. Where are we going, Nearly?
Westray, one of the northern islands of Orkney.
Turns out, Westray was pretty foggy too, and had been for 3 weeks. A quick visit to the Westray airport to see where the shortest commercial flight in the world takes off from. The flight to the island of Papa Westray is just over 1 minute duration, but conditions were too foggy.
We're on a wee walk along the coast of Westray looking for a Norse church, an old kirk, which was reportedly built back in 1140, so it is a ruin. But yeah, nice wee adventure down this wee goat track along the coastline here. Wiggle it, Ellie, wiggle it. This wee kirk was built by a Norseman called Halfridi Thorkelson. What an awesome name that is. So it was built almost 900 years ago, so 1140, and it's amazing to think that there's even this much of it still remaining.
More of a fortress, Notland Castle is a 16th century ruin which is still largely intact.
You can see some of the 70 odd gun holes in this wall here.
This room that you can't see is an absolutely huge cavern which housed the kitchen. It felt more like a dungeon and was pretty spooky.
To the right is an oven where bread and pies were baked. Notland Castle was built for Gilbert Balfour in and around 1560 thereabouts. So Gilbert Balfour was the master of Mary Queen of Scots' household, and prior to this it seems he had a part to play in the murder of a bishop of St Andrews and had spent some time in the French gallows. And after this he got out, came over to Scotland, looked after Mary Queen of Scots' household, and then was implicated in the murder of Lord Darnley. After that he came up here to this property, which was a manor at the time, he got from his brother-in-law, and turned it into what looks to be a fortress these days. You can see all these huge amount of gun holes in the walls. And after that, things got a bit hot for him here in Orkney, even at this far end of the kingdom, and he fled to Sweden, where he then became embroiled in a murder attempt on the King of Sweden. So didn't seem like a particularly nice guy, and to be honest with you, the castle has a pretty bad vibe in there. It's pretty bad juju. It's really dark and dank. Yeah, amazing place to come to visit, but some really eerie vibes.
Back on the coast, we explore some more of Westray's historical sites.
So we've got little places to sit on the inside.
The Links of Notland is an archaeological site dating back to 3300 BCE and shares some similarities with Skara Brae. The site is over 3 hectares and contains remains of a Neolithic village and Bronze Age dwellings. Its most famous find is the Westray Wife, a Neolithic carving which is believed to be the earliest representation of a human ever found in Scotland. The Westray Wife now lives in the Westray Heritage Centre, along with another archaeological find, the intricately carved Westray Stone.
Noop Head Lighthouse, which was built in 1898 and is one of the last of the Stevenson lighthouses, built by David Stevenson. Yes, it seems to be a lonely and rugged outpost here on top of this cliff at the northern end of Westray, next stop Shetland, and that's about all I know.
About to catch ferry number 22 for SUP Safari Scotland, and we're heading over to the island of Rousay. So it's a quick ferry ride, about 25-30 minutes, but there's a whole heap of really amazing historical sites to go and visit over there. I don't think there's any sandy beaches, but we're going to check out the opportunities as well. Here's hoping. We're on the island of Rousay, which is not far from Orkney's mainland off the northern shore, and we've just driven up Surin Brae, which is the highest road in all of Orkney, and it's giving us a really great view over the Northern Isles. So over behind me is the island of Westray, which we were on just a couple of days ago, and you can see Noop Head and the Noop Head Lighthouse just at the very top of those cliffs there. We've just arrived at Midhow Chambered Cairn and Broch, which is on the south side of Rousay and faces over towards Evie Beach of the mainland. So this area is really quite rich in archaeological history. The cairn itself is about 5,500 years old, and it is one of the largest Neolithic cairns in the whole of Orkney. And of course, you know how we feel about Broch, so we're going to go down and have a look at that too. So this is the cairn here. It's in a purpose-built hangar, and the Broch is just over here. That dates back to 2,000 to 2,500 years ago. A huge workforce came together to raise Midhow's enormous stalled cairn about 5,400 years ago. They were perhaps driven by competition with rivals across Orkney to build bigger, better monuments to honour their dead. Slabs were quarried, shaped and set upright to form the stalls of the chamber, while the outside of the cairn was faced with dry stone walling laid in a herringbone pattern. The roof slabs are long gone. Later, walls were built from two corners of the mound. In modern times, Midhow was nicknamed the Great Ship of Death. The remains of 25 human skeletons, including those of 2 young children, were found in the tomb. Bodies had been laid crouched on stone benches within the compartments. When they had decomposed, their bones were rearranged in heaps, some placed on the floor. A sense of their lifestyle emerged with the 2006-13 excavation of a Neolithic farming settlement at Braza Harbrick on the neighbouring island of Wyre. Its residents lived in rectangular stalled houses, some timber, some stone, and stored their barley in a well-built granary. After centuries of use, the tomb's entrance was sealed before 2 more people were buried amid the filling material. Millennia later, the mound was remodelled. So each one of these little partitions was where they laid someone to rest. Midhow Broch was constructed about 3,500 years after the nearby cairn. It was built around the 1st century Common Era as the dwelling place of a powerful local family. The Broch was protected by a ditch and rampart across the neck of the promontory. Later, the interior of the Broch was divided up and buildings constructed around it. We love a good broch. Let's go have a look. It's actually quite well preserved. The walls, for the most part, are probably easily 3 to 4 metres, almost the entire way around. And there's a lot of little partitions in the middle. So a bit different from Musa Broch and Guncarlaway Broch. Let's go and have a look at the other half. Midhow's inhabitants were wealthy enough to enjoy the luxuries of life. Along with the usual bone tools and earthenware pots, excavations revealed locally made bronze ornaments and iron tools, as well as dark orange Samian pottery from the Roman Empire. The internal stone fittings are from a later period in the site's history. Midhow was probably inhabited for centuries, and during this time, the use of spaces and the architecture changed. The ground floor has been clearly divided into 2 rooms of roughly the same size, but who used them and for what remains unknown. Brochs are amongst Scotland's most impressive prehistoric buildings. These stone roundhouses date from about 2,300 to 1,900 years ago and are found mainly in North and West Scotland. Set behind a rock-cut ditch and rampart, Midhow Broch was the first and largest building of a small, well-laid-out village. It may have been built by an extended family, demonstrating their power and influence in the area. Although the site would have provided some protection against sporadic raiding, the inhabitants were farmers, like nearly everyone at this time. Midhow is one of at least 9 brochs, including Gurness, that stand sentinel over the narrow and dangerous stretch of water known as Ein Hallow Sound.
There are many chambered cairns on Rousay which are currently closed to visitors. However, there are some pretty cool 3D models which can be viewed online. But Back on Orkney's mainland, the weather has warmed up and calmed down, so it's time for a SUP.
We're back at Evie Beach at the moment. Paddled here a couple of years ago and it's a beautiful big sandy bay, for the most part fairly shallow. The water is really clear, so you can pretty much tell when it's getting a little bit too deep. It was beautiful and still last night, but there's a bit of a breeze sprung up today. But the really cool thing about being here is that you can see over to the island of Rousay behind me. So Rousay is where we were yesterday, and you may, if I can angle this right, be able to see over my right shoulder there's a wee roof, like a creamy coloured roof, and that is the roof on the shed or the protective building around Mid-Howe Chambered Cairn, and wind's pushing me over, and Mid-Howe Brock as well. So it kind of gives you a bit of a perspective as to where things are. So yeah, apparently there's about 15 different chambered cairns over on Rousay. There was only about 4 of them that were mapped and obvious without sort of going and getting Ordnance Survey maps and tracking them down and whatnot. But yeah, it was a really cool visit yesterday. A couple of sunny spells today, so I thought we'd get out on the board, have a good paddle on Evie before we leave. We're booked on the ferry, booked on Alfred, the catamaran, to go back across the Pentland Firth to mainland Scotland tomorrow. So from there on, it's all south. Spurred outback trucker, reversing on the ferry once a year. No pressure.
No pressure.
Guy with the camera over there.
Thanks for watching. If you'd love to keep the videos coming, you can support us by liking, subscribing, clicking notifications, and sharing with your paddleboarding mates. See you next week.